Hey guys, Harrison101 back at it once again for a brand new video for you. Big news regarding the future of this channel. I'm not going to say exactly what it is, just in case a few things, logistically don't work out. But if you want a sneak preview as to what that news is, go log onto my Facebook page. The link is in the description. Anywho, now time to take on the halfway point of our team review series. So take a look at the 6th place team in the Constructors' Championship, Sauber, and of course their two drivers, Kobayashi and Sergio Perez, who had very, very interesting seasons. Hard to compare, and we're getting into that midfield period now, where things are definitely a lot more interesting and a lot more competitive. So things do get a little bit harder to grade. But with a little luck, we'll plough through and soldier on. So, without further ado, and hopefully it won't be his last time I'm saying this guy's name on video, but let's have a look at Kamui Kobayashi's season. The thing with Sauber is that both their drivers ultimately ended up with a similar amount of points, Kobayashi 60 and Perez with 66. However, how they got there is two very, very different stories. Let's take a Kobayashi season first. Didn't have a pole position, but his best was a 2nd place in Belgium. Had the one podium, the magical 3rd place around Japan, just holding off Jenson Button. And 9 times he finished in the points. Not to mention, Kobayashi was actually a pretty decent qualifier. He finished inside the top 5. I think it was 4 times he qualified on the first 3 rows of the grid, which is actually pretty darn impressive given the Sauber. And sometimes his car was really good, sometimes it wasn't, and sometimes he was over-aggressive and that would cause him to make mistakes here and there, but something that I love about Kobayashi is that his will and his determination, and he errs just on the side of aggression that is more of the forgivable side of aggression, in the terms of, I'd be like, yeah, fair play to the fella for going for it, rather than the, oh, that was way too silly, that was a stupid manoeuvre. Don't get me wrong, Kobayashi's made his fair share of mistakes. He had 4 retirements this year, not to mention one of the silly ones was against Jenson Button in Korea. But overall, Kobayashi was consistent. I mean, 45% of the time he was inside the points. And overall, I think he had a pretty solid year, which is a real shame considering that wasn't enough to save his job, given Sauber lent towards Esteban Gutierrez as their now new number 2 driver behind Nico Hülkenberg. Hopefully this isn't the end for Kamui Kobayashi, who was a very, very solid driver this year. On the flip side of the coin, we have Sergio Perez this season, who I think was maybe just a little smidget of a little bit better than Kamui Kobayashi was. While Kobayashi was a little bit more consistent, Sergio Perez had a knack of the spectacular. He gambled. He would often take high-risk strategies, and sometimes they would pay off spectacularly, sometimes they wouldn't. His 3 podium finishes this year in Italy, Canada and Malaysia were all spectacular drives. 2 of them nominated as Driver of the Year contenders, often seen by you, the viewers of this show. Overall, he finished with 66 points, just 6 more than Kobayashi, mainly because Kobayashi was in the points twice more, and Perez had 6 retirements compared to Kobayashi's 4. However, 6 times Sergio Perez finished in 11th place this season, just outside the points, which is also very interesting. Maybe if things swung a little bit more in his favour, he could have 70 to 80 points instead of 60 plus. He did have that awful stretch at the end of the year, though, which people started to question whether he was the right man for the McLaren role, because after the 2nd place results in Italy, he only scored 1 more point for the whole season and didn't score in the last 7 races. But the guy has got tremendous upside and potential, more than Kobayashi does, in my honest opinion, and it's going to be very interesting to see what he does next year in a top-level car like the McLaren, because he has all the tools to be a potential race winner. If he can do it in a Sauber, he can sure as hell do it in a McLaren. He could be the biggest rising star this sport has got right now. Sergio Perez, the man to watch in 2013. Well, what about the car? Well, Sauber overall as a team have got a lot to be thankful for in having two fantastic drivers in Perez and Kobayashi. Overall, the team improved a ton on last year. Last year, they were stuck with 44 points and looked very mediocre. This year, they got 126, and they were able to overtake their rivals Force India this year into 6th place in the Constructors' title, which means more sponsorship money for them. So maybe they can take some leaps and bounds to improve even further for 2013, because right now, this was the most competitive mid-card maybe in Formula 1 history. It was literally, no one was able to predict how that midfield was gonna run this year. It depends on who would have a good weekend, who would have a bad weekend, who would get their setups right at given circuits. I mean, sometimes Williams was really good, sometimes Force India was really good on a weekend, sometimes Toro Rosso would sneak into the points here and there. Sometimes it was Sauber's week to have a really good race weekend. You'll see the story of that for a lot of teams coming up in these reviews, but a lot of them were inconsistent, and a lot of them seem to be setup based, and cars that only really Force India as a mid-car team showed development across the board of the season. It seemed to be a bit of a random hodgepodge at times, but overall, Sauber had a really solid car this year, and like I said, they nearly trebled their points from 2011. So you have to give the car a good grade here, because clearly it got them over the line and it really helped them develop compared to 2011. Sorry, my apologies. But let me know which Sauber driver you thought had the better year, because it's very interesting to compare the two and debate. And obviously, what you thought of the review in general, and was I too harsh, was I too generous? Let me know. I'd love to hear your take on these things. Coming up next time, Force India. But this series is taking just a small break to get a FIFA video in there for you football fans out there, and then we'll be picking up things again later in the week. Until then, I've been Harrison101. Thank you very much for watching. Feel free to leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys next time. Sayonara.